What's going on, YouTube? How's it going? So, one thing that I said when I was on here last couple days ago that I probably wouldn't do any more videos on this platform because of the censorship issues that I was having, and I was really kind of frustrated with it, and I have been for a couple of years now. I'm big into firearms. I'm big into diesel trucks. I'm big into motorcycles. I'm big into politics. And diesel trucks and motorcycles seem to be okay as long as you avoid certain topics. But politics and firearms are only okay if you toe the YouTube Silicon Valley narrative. And I don't. Wasn't born that way, wasn't raised that way, and not gonna talk in a way that doesn't fit who I am. But I've done a few videos on my truck on this platform, and I've had a couple of people reach out and say, "Hey, can you do a update video on your LBZ 2007 Chevy Duramax?" And so that's what I'm going to do. So I bought that truck 4 years ago. It'll be 5 in November. And it was the first diesel truck I've ever owned. I've owned a lot of trucks. My very first truck was a Ford Ranger when I was young. Then I bought a 83 Chevy Suburban. And yes, I consider that a truck. And then I had a 1999 Chevy 454 or 7.4 liter Vortex 7.4 liter truck. I've had a 74 Chevy pickup truck with a 454 built 454. I had a 2006 GMC Sierra 5.3 liter. I had a 2006 Dodge Ram 1500 with the Hemi. And now I have had this 2007 LBZ Duramax classic body style. When I bought the truck, it had 160 some thousand miles. I can't remember if it was 68, 67, 64, 160 something thousand. I'm pretty sure some of my previous videos kind of go over that. Anyway, I bought it, and it was in rough shape. As far the body and everything was in great shape, frame was in great shape, but the injectors were on the verge of toast. They made a lot of noise. It seemed very gutless when I got it. And I was kind of taken back by it, but I'd never owned a diesel. So I thought maybe the reason it feels gutless is because I'm not used to the diesel. I'm used to V8s, V8 gas engines. So maybe that's what the issue is. But I started doing some diving. It had a turbo issue when I bought it. I took and bought a warranty for it, had the turbo included in that warranty. About 5 months after I got the truck, I had the turbo replaced. The warranty cost me less than it would have cost to have the turbo replaced. So it saved me about $1,000 on having the turbo replaced. So I had that done, and the truck seemed better, but still not great. So I started doing some digging and realizing it's probably the injectors. So the second thing I did after I had the turbo replaced is I put a lift pump in it. And to be fair, I put the lift pump in not backwards, but I had switched the return line and the feed line. And so it was putting me into limp mode every time I'd get on the throttle, and because it wasn't giving enough diesel fuel. So it took me a little bit to figure out what that was all about. So I got that switched around, that went away, and I started running an additive, hoping that I could get that corrected by running an additive. It didn't seem to help too much. So what I did is I have an old friend that used to drive tractor, and he said what he used to do in his old tractor when it seemed like it was getting bogged down is he'd run a couple of tanks of diesel fuel with a few quarts of transmission fluid in the diesel to clean out the injectors. So I did that, and I did that for about 30,000 miles, but I noticed a huge difference after about 4,000 or 5,000 miles. The motor calmed down, quieted down. My balance rates are within spec. Here they are, the original original injectors, and I'm still running them, and they're within spec. Which when I bought the truck, and I bought the CTS2, they were not in spec. They were pretty bad. They were running 4s, 5s. One was running a 7. And so I started running the transmission fluid just to buy me enough time so I could have the injectors replaced. That's a $5,000 job. And the warranty that I had purchased wouldn't cover injectors. So I thought, what the heck, I'll run the transmission fluid. I ran that through. I used transmission fluid and the what do they call that? The stuff that you can get in the gray bottle from Walmart. The name has slipped my mind. So I would take a gallon jug, put a quart of that stuff in, and then fill it the rest of the way up. 3 quarts of transmission fluid, shake it up, pour it into little bottles. I believe they were 12 ounce bottles. And I ran that for a good probably 30,000 miles for the last probably 20 to 30,000 miles. And my balance rates, like I said, are now fully within spec, 1s, 2s at most. And so I don't care what anybody says. In my experience running ATF, and like I said, I only ran 12 ounces a tank. So running ATF, and I think it's Power Service. Yes, Power Service gray bottle additive mixed in with that. Running that for 4,000 or 5,000 miles, my truck was a different truck after that. That combined with the lift pump, I think immensely helped the injectors in that truck. And like I said, a lot of people say, oh, your injector's 160, 170,000 miles. I'm at 215, and I would put my injector balance rates up against any truck with 100,000 or less. They're that good. So in my experience, running transmission fluid has been a benefit. Now, if you've got a newer body style 2007 with the DPF, the diesel particulate filter, I probably wouldn't run that. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't want to run that. My truck doesn't blow smoke. It doesn't have a haze. It's very throttle responsive. Oh, the other things that I did around that time also is after I had the new turbo put in, I PCV reroute. I did a homemade PCV reroute. I also did a EGR block off plate. Now, I didn't delete the EGR or the EGR cooler for two main reasons. If you just slide the block off plate in there and bolt it down, you won't blow your bellows. But if you run that block off plate and that EGR arm on your up pipe is not supported very well or at all, you will blow the bellow. And then you'll have to get in there and replace your up pipe. But if you leave your EGR and your EGR cooler intact and just run the block off plate, I know guys that have run them for years and never had any problems, as long as you leave the EGR and the EGR cooler. Now, the EGR is going to throw a code, but it's not going to put your truck in limp mode. So you're going to be completely fine as far as that's concerned. So those were the major things that I did to the truck to get the engine cleaned up and running well and performing well. Was replacing the turbo because it had the turbo vane issue. The guy that had it before me would haul his camper and then let it sit, and the vanes were getting stuck. So I had the turbo replaced, did a EGR block off plate, PCV reroute, ran transmission fluid in every tank, and did the lift pump, and was religious about changing my filters. For a little while, I ran dual filters. I ran a cat filter up at the front, and then my filters in the back on the AirDog. I've got the AirDog 100 because I wasn't going for power. That hasn't been, I am completely happy with the amount of power. I wanted reliability in the truck. And so I bought the AirDog 100. And so I had those filters plus the cat filter for a while. After everything started running good and I felt like the injectors were nice and clean and my balance rates were within spec, I went ahead and deleted the front fuel filter because it's a pain in the butt to get to. You have to take the inner fender well off, when I can just get up under the truck, clamp the hose off, pull the old filter, put the new one on. So I did delete the front filter after a bit. And that took care of all of the issues that I had with the motor. Transmission is solid. I have had no issues with it. When I first got the truck, I had it flushed. I know you're not supposed to flush the Allison transmission. I did not realize that. Anyway, I had it flushed, and I've replaced the fluid on its increment, and I replaced the external filter every 10,000 miles. I've also, like I said, done oil changes. I do run AMSOIL, but I am not an AMSOIL fanboy. I happen to get a decent discount on it, so I run AMSOIL. Plus, it gets delivered right to my doorstep with the filter that I like, the Wix filter, and I like it. I know a lot of people like Rotella, a lot of people like Dello, a lot of people have their choice. I like the AMSOIL, but I'm never going to be like that guy that says, oh, you have to run AMSOIL because it cures syphilis and gonorrhea for herpal AIDS and will repair your cab corners. No, that's not the way I work. The The other things I've done to the truck is I added 2-inch spacers in the rear to get rid of the bulldog stance. I've also replaced the transfer case with a transfer case from Kodiak Truck. Mine had almost 200,000 miles, and I was worried about the pump rub issue, and I wanted to put a transfer case in there. Again, I'm all about making sure that the truck is reliable. And so I wanted to put a reliable, solid transfer case in there that I wouldn't ever have to worry about again for as long as I decided to own this truck. Even if I had the motor rebuilt and the transmission rebuilt, that transfer case would last. So I did get a transfer case from them and had it put in with a transmission brace. $100 worth of insurance. It's no harder to put the transfer case in with the brace than without the brace, and like I said, it cost me $100 to purchase the brace. So I know some guys say you don't need it unless you're doing pulls, all of that stuff. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I put it in there as insurance again because I'm going for staunch reliability. The other thing is when you buy a truck with 160,000 miles and I wasn't prepared for it, you are going to have things that you have to replace that you wouldn't have to normally. I've replaced the suspension. I've replaced the tie rod ends. I've got kryptonite, greasable tie rod ends. I've replaced the shocks with I think they're 4000 series, Bilstein 4000 series, 4600s, I think they are. I have just got done replacing the power steering pump and batteries and just stuff because the truck is old. And a lot of these parts just weren't meant to last that long. So you've got to make sure that you think about that if you're buying a truck that is got some miles and is a bit older. You're going to see those normal wear and tear issues go out. I've replaced the alternator. I'm trying to think of what else. I've redid the exhaust in it. I've got a 4-inch straight pipe exhaust. I had a catalytic converter that had a big hole in the top, and it was stinking up the cab because that catalytic converter was right under the cab. Anybody who tells you there's not a catalytic converter on an 07 Duramax is wrong. There is a catalytic converter and a muffler on a Duramax, 07 Duramax. And so I removed that and just did a 4-inch straight pipe. It sounds amazing. Not so loud that it's annoying, but it's loud enough to know that you got some power there. So I think I've gained probably 60, 70 horsepower with the things that I've done. I've probably gained 200 foot-pounds of torque. There's definitely a power difference versus when I bought the truck. But yeah, so just know if you're buying an older truck, you're going to run into some of those issues. And other than that, that's pretty much all I've done. I've put cab lights on it, and I replaced the mirrors with Boost Auto Part mirrors, and I did a bed liner. And I've replaced the headlight housings a number of times. Even when you buy good ones, it seems like they still leak. So anyway, that's my update on my Duramax. Go ahead and leave me some comments or questions down below, and I can make an additional video later. All right, you guys, have a great day, and thanks for watching. Peace!